Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Spiritually Fly the Word. Today's episode is about the unconscious mind, and actually something else I couldn't actually put in the title because it only allows a little space. The rest of it is actually about demons. So I see a couple of people popping on. While you guys are coming on, I'm actually going to read a poem, then drop in a little bit about the word, do a read, and then talk some more. So, as you know, Spiritually Fly the Word is based on my book, Spiritually Fly, and I am working today from Sutra 3. Sutra 3 is face your demons with compassion and bravery. And here's the poem. And it's actually right there. So you guys can see I don't think I've ever showed you guys some of the pictures inside of here, but that's the picture inside of boom, that section. Okay. Breathe into your past. Release the shame. As lessons prepare you for the next. Breathe into your present. Drop in. Feel the stability elevate you. Breathe into your future. Ride waves of dreams as hopes unfold magically. Yeah, so that's the poem, and actually all the chapters and all the sutras and sections of my book start off with a poem that I wrote. But this particular one was perfect because it starts off the sutra and the chapter that is about dealing with our internal demons, our aspects of shame, and it starts to really get deep into the subconscious mind, meaning the work that is inside of the book starts to dig even further into the subconscious mind. What I want to say before I do the read is that one of the things that I have not shared in terms of what's in the book, and not just what's in the book, but what my teaching has been, I would probably say over the past decade. I've been teaching meditation, yoga, and wellness practices for almost 2 decades. But right around that 10-year period, specifically, I want to reference the topic that I discussed last Sunday. So right around that time, I had that crazy, insane, rock bottom situation of abuse that kind of pulled me out, and meaning pulled me out of some of my old patterns. And I was like, okay, I can't continue to repeat some of these old patterns. I have to shift and do something differently. And then that's when Spiritually Fly came about. That's when my whole teaching method and style, I don't want to call it style, it is the method. My whole teaching method started to evolve, and definitely over the years since 2010, 2011 time period, that's when, or over that time, I really started to hone in on how I want to teach and how I want to shift lives. If you have had the opportunity to practice with me, meaning like especially practice in person for more than like an hour. Like for an hour, I'm able to dive in a little bit. I'm able to share a little bit, right? When I had my yoga studio, I was able to get in some stuff. And many people, a lot of my students were coming constantly. So they were every week, multiple times a week, they're getting these reinforced messages, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, that are helping them to dive a little bit deeper. If some people would do, when I traveled, they would do a 2-hour, 3-hour workshop or experience a retreat with me. Those are also those opportunities where I can go deep. Within the going deep, that is the method that is in the book and the reason why it's laid out in the way. And if you have the book, you know that inside I'm telling you to stop and do this for 7 days. Stop and do this for 21 days. Stop and do this for 40 days, because one meditation, one yoga class is not going to change your unconscious mind. It is not going to shift you into a new state of being. It is not going to change those patterns those habitual patterns that have been layered on year after year. So let me read, and then I'm going to dive a little bit more into the science. We're getting a little spiritual and sciencey today. All right, so Sutra 3, and I'm reading from the first section, page 59, if you have the book. And in most of the book, I do like just kind of like a little preset, so people kind of get the tone of where I'm going to go. And here this is for this section. You don't deserve to be here. You don't have what it takes. You are pretty for a dark-skinned girl. You look nothing like your mother. Your brother is smart, but at least you can dance. Stop dreaming and focus. Wow, you are so articulate. They will see and hear all of your flaws. You are incapable of running a national department. You are too young. You haven't done this long enough. Wait for your turn. She said, you aren't ready to teach these events. You need more years of experience. They will notice your inadequacies. No one wants to learn yoga from a Black woman. Why are you so bossy? You are extremely selfish. Small businesses fail. Dreams don't come true. Get a real job. You don't have enough followers. Maybe you should show more skin in pictures. You are not enough. These are just some of the messages and thoughts that occupied my mind from childhood all the way to flyhood. And that's kind of where I consider myself now. I'm like in that flyhood zone, in flyhood. I don't blame the emotional programming I received from my mother, my father, or adults in my life. My parents did their best they could. However, the signals definitely got crossed in my mind when their support of my extracurricular activities did not match the verbal statements and secret conversations I overheard. About 60% of the time, their words were more encouraging than limiting, but the other 40% consisted of negative words or actions that played out in the form of control, guilt, and shame. And there's some more. It's called a whole book. But I just wanted you to take a moment and just kind of breathe on that for a second. And maybe as I was rolling through those statements, maybe you've heard those statements before. So this is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about our little demons, those little demons that sit on our shoulder. And the question is, how did they get there? How did they even show up? Well, they showed up in childhood. That's how they showed up. But they showed up tiny, little micro demons that started to continue to play out and boost and support us in a very odd way, right? And I use the word support because they're basically back there going, I got you. You're not good enough. Nope, nope, nope. Don't do that. Nope, nope, nope. Remember that time? Those are our demons. But those demons are basically our unconscious patterns and behaviors. So how do we even get there? So between the ages of, and this is the science part, between the ages of 0, and some people even say in utero, right? All the way up to the age of 7. We don't have like a truly formed, right? You guys are really into science. We don't have a fully formed frontal lobe, right? Around the age of 7, it starts to develop. And even some of that development doesn't fully step into, meaning that we don't fully step into that frontal lobe power until we're around the age of 11, 12. So if the frontal lobe is slowly shifting into development between the ages of 0 and 7, 0 to 11, that means that the mind is extremely impressionable. So I'll give you a quick example. As a child, right, I loved moving my body. I loved dancing. It was like something that just came natural for me. However, there were moments and times where sometimes my dancing could get a little out of control. And I would be like all over the house, just playing like, ah, la, 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 dancing, music's loud, like, and then my mother, because she's dealing with her adult stuff, would come in the room and yell at me. Faith, aren't you supposed to be cleaning up? Or Faith, stop dancing. You know you need to do X, Y, and Z, right? You're being stupid, right? I'm sure your parents have said those things to you. You're being stupid, right? Stop being an idiot. You're not being a good girl. You're not being a good boy, right? Whatever the negative words were, to control you. But as a child, right, we don't know what our parents are going through. We're not experiencing that. All we're hearing is that we're not good enough. We're stupid. We're not behaving. We're bad. Oh, here's another one. I want you to behave. So if you're good, I'm going to give you some ice cream. Then that develops a whole nother behavior of trying to be good so that you can have something to eat. And then that creates, as you know, bad eating habits. But what happens is the brain, right, at that age, again, is so impressionable. And those messages that we hear, those behaviors that we start to engage in at that young age are like, boom, sealed in tight. So then as we start to move through our teenage years, we start to move through our adulthood, we may encounter other individuals, we may encounter the media, we may encounter what we are on right now, social media, that continue to reinforce those messages. But the crazy part about it is that we can also form at that time really positive behaviors. Because the frontal lobe is this critical thinking aspect, like it's something that we need. So when we learn how to drive a car, right, for the first time, we've developed these critical thinking messages, right, that say, oh, that's a red light. I've seen my parents drive a car. The red light is there. They stop at a red light. Oh, when I start driving, I make sure that I'm stopping at a red light, right? So there's that, but then that behavior, just like those negative behaviors, that behavior starts to drop into our unconscious. So then when we get in the car and we start driving, then we realize, now I'm driving. I know where I need to stop. I know the stop signs. I know the red lights. I know how not to hit people in the crosswalk. But we don't have to really critically think about those things anymore because they are now further back in our unconscious. The same thing goes with tying our shoes. We learn how to tie our shoes as a young child. That's something that we need to use and do for the rest of our lives. But we don't even have to think about it anymore. But here's the caveat. when we experience something negative, when we engage in negative behavior, at some point in our adult life, we realize that that negative behavior, that negative message, that unhealthy behavior and message can impact our ability to grow, to be better, to take chances, to say yes to ourselves. The interesting part is that our nervous system is designed for comfort, right? It's designed and created for comfort. And our soul, at the depths of it, is designed and crafted for growth. However, when we have been in these negative patterns, which at some point we don't even realize that they're negative patterns, they become a place of comfort. And when we are encouraged, or even if in our minds we decide, I want to shift out of this negative pattern. I don't want to be in that old nasty comfort place, right? That place of stank comfort is not serving me anymore. And now I want to move and shift into another place. It's possible to take that shift. However, we have to do more in order to take that shift, because those patterns are so sealed into our unconscious mind that it's going to take a whole shitload for us to propel us forward. Here's another example. We know all about positive thinking, right? I love myself some affirmations. But we have to do more than simply saying the affirmation. We have to do more than posting the affirmation on Instagram and say, that's what I'm doing today. I'm powerful. Whoo, right? Whatever the affirmation is. What we have to do is put that affirmation into action. And that's really the work that I have been committing myself to over the past 10 plus years. Like I would say my first couple of years of teaching yoga and meditation were just kind of me getting my feet wet, right? I was just feeling my way. But then when I went through that rock bottom experience, right, that traumatic experience, that's when I was like, how can I take these tools and engage them in a way that I am not going to repeat that old pattern? So that means that I had to start working on my unconscious thoughts and have a breakthrough so that the choices, right, that frontal lobe piece, that critical thinking, I don't just drop right into the easy. I don't just drop right into the comfort place because the comfort place is safe. But instead, I want to jump into what my soul calling is. My soul calling is to be the best human being I want to be. My soul calling is for me to live out my life's dreams. My soul calling is to be passionate about my life. My soul calling is to take chances, do new things, be adventurous. That's my soul calling. That's your soul calling, right? We all want to be our best selves. But in order for us to be our best selves, we have to step out of those old patterns and move forward. The way that we do that, the way we get beyond just the basic affirmations, is again, we have to put it in action. And the way that we put it in action is through meditation, is through breath work, is through moving the body, is through doing exercises and taking steps every single day in order to do that. We have to surround ourselves with people that are like-minded. We have to constantly make an effort. And so that means that we have to design a lifestyle that matches up with what our dreams are. Now here's the next piece, because the first recommendation that I shared was like, do the meditations, do the yoga, like do all those things. But you can't bypass the work in those. And that's what I feel I would say, as yoga has become more popular over the past couple of years, and more people are doing it. They're walking into your yoga class, they might feel a little something, but then they leave and go right into the same behavior. Nothing changes. And so some of the work that I do is about getting a little bit deeper. And I mentioned earlier, if you've ever taken one of my classes, you've probably like, oh my God, what the heck happened to me on that day? My heart cracked open. And then you show back up the next day and you're like, oh my God, something else happened. Because what I have consciously done in my teaching, I'm walking people through the work. I'm guiding people through the work. You're the one doing the work, but I'm the one guiding you. My method, my technique, my process of guiding meditation, my process of guiding breathwork, my process of teaching even a simple yoga class, right? Teaching a yoga class and merging it with these elements, right? Of the journaling, of the breathwork, of the mudras, of the mantras. I'm helping you to move beyond the spiritual bypassing, moving beyond the bypassing of the things that you think, or the bypassing where you think you want to go and jumping over it instead of moving through the muck and the muddy waters. The other interesting piece is that we have to change the landscape, and that was what I was talking about, the environment. When you make a conscious choice to be better, to do better, to show up better, to live your best life, you have to think about what you're consuming. So if you're going to McDonald's every day, right? And this is how the brain works too. You're going to McDonald's every day and you go and you buy the Big Mac. And you're like, yeah, I'm so satisfied. I'm full, I had a meal, it even tastes good, right? Whatever the thoughts are. And your brain's like, oh, okay, great. And then your body is probably like, okay, yeah, I'm full, but I'm not optimal. But then you keep doing it every day. You keep repeating it. That same bad pattern every single day. And at some point, the body drops into this place of like, oh, well, that's what we're going to be eating every day. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it and relax it. Just let it be. I'm just going to relax in this moment. I'm going to come back to that comfort place, because she's going to feed me more McDonald's and this is going to taste good. However, you know that it's not good for you. And then what do? You make the decision to change, but you just don't sit there and go, well, tomorrow I'm going to eat a salad, or tomorrow I'm going to eat some type of healthy meal. I'm going to eat some real food. But then you wake up the next day and you don't eat the real food, but you have your little mantra, eat real food. The action step is you actually eating the real food the next day and the next day and the next day and the next year. You're still eating real food, because the body will adapt. The brain will adjust to whatever you give it. And therefore, if your brain is adjusting to whatever you give it, it will assume that the crap that you're feeding it is what is good for it. But you know at your soul level, right? Because the soul craves growth. You know at your soul level that that is not what you need. So therefore, you have to make the conscious effort to change your environment so that you can be whole. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah, just give me a thumbs up if I'm seeing all the hearts and all the love. So I think I'm talking to the right people today. So I just want to say thank you for all that goodness. But the key here for today, and the most important piece, is to be mindful of what you're consuming. If you think that you want to make a shift and a change, you have to take action. You can't bypass the hard work. You can't bypass the shifting. And you have to engage in practices that are going to support you. So what I'm going to encourage you guys to do is to definitely get into a meditation practice that is going to shift your mind. And this is where I'm going next. So I'm in the process of crafting more and more meditations that I will be dropping at the beginning of the year. And all of these meditations, they're in the style that I've been teaching, of course. However, they're extremely rooted in shifts and changes. And they are all, which I'm really excited about, they're all going to be based on the sutras. They are all going to be based on what is in the book. And the idea and the concept of the way that I am pulling these meditations together, the way that I'm pulling the breath work, because I'm doing also deep breath work sessions, the way that I'm pulling these breath work sessions will all be based upon changing the neuroplasticity of the mind. It will be all about going back into your unconscious, shifting and changing what is happening there, and boom, bringing it forward so that you are emptying out those old patterns, eliminating those old patterns, and then putting good stuff back in. So then when you need to make a critical decision, when you need to activate that frontal lobe, which we are constantly doing, you are relying on positive, unconscious behaviors, thoughts, and patterns that you have sealed in. But again, it takes more than one meditation. It takes tons of them. It takes days, weeks, months, and years of work. And I will say, I'm still on that journey, right? Because it's never ending, because there are still some deep unconscious patterns, behaviors, thought processes that are so deeply ingrained in us, those old messages, that it takes sometimes the deep work in order for those to come forth. Like they just aren't gonna, we're just like moving through our day and making choices and decisions and living our lives based on unconscious patterns. So yeah, that was the message for today, the unconscious mind, looking at the nervous system. And I want to just say this again, the nervous system is designed for comfort. Our soul is designed for growth. And therefore it is up to us to provide a very pure landscape so that we can grow and be our best humans. So that we can live our soul's calling, so that we can take those chances, so we can leap and fall into the life that we desire. Thank you so much, everyone, for our Sunday session, and I will be posting this message on my feed. So I encourage you to listen to it again. Maybe you'll grab something out of the second listen, and definitely feel free to share it with your friends. And of course, look out for my new content that's going to be tapping into the unconscious mind and supporting you on emptying out the old patterns and laying down some new ones. Have a great one, guys. Ciao.